I never thought a peaceful summer afternoon by the lake would turn into a full-blown neighborhood battle, but that's exactly what happened when my HOA's self-proclaimed queen, Karen, decided my property was her new shortcut to the water. One minute I was sipping iced tea on my porch, and the next I saw her marching across my lawn with a clipboard in one hand and a smug look on her face. I figured it was just another petty complaint, maybe about my lawn length or the color of my shutters. But no. What came next was so bold, so ridiculous, I almost laughed. Until the sound of my fence being demolished snapped me right out of it. Yep. Karen, without warning or permission, hired a crew to rip down a perfectly legal solid wood fence I had built just last year. Her excuse? She needed lake access and claimed the HOA gave her the green light. Thing is, I checked with the HOA months ago when I put up that fence and everything was fully approved. But Karen has this way of twisting rules and steamrolling over people until she gets what she wants. And apparently, what she wanted was to use my backyard like her own private path to the lake. I stood there watching in disbelief as the workers yanked out posts and tossed my fence panels like trash. I could have stopped it then and there, but I didn't. I let her finish. I stayed calm, nodded politely, and waited for just the right moment. Because what Karen didn't realize was that every move she made was digging her deeper into a situation she couldn't control. And me. I had a plan. One that was going to flip this whole thing on its head and make sure she couldn't pull something like this ever again. And when it was all said and done, I didn't just get my fence, but Guy got everything now. To really understand how we got here, you've got to know a bit more about Karen. She's not just a nosy neighbor. She's the kind of person who treats the HOA like her personal kingdom. President of the board for the last 3 years, self-elected every time, and trust me, nobody dares to run against her. She walks around like she owns the whole street, handing out citations for things like having your garbage bin out 10 minutes too early or planting the wrong kind of flowers. Yeah, she's that kind of HOA Karen. We'd always kept it civil mostly, because I stayed out of her way. But everything changed when the lake became the focus. Our neighborhood has a private lake, and only certain lots like mine have direct access. Karen's house is on the other side of the cul-de-sac. No water access, no view. And that's always bothered her. She's made little comments before about how unfair it is that only a few people can enjoy the lake directly. I just smiled and brushed it off until the day my fence disappeared. What Karen didn't realize was that I had every permit, every approval, every single email from the HOA backing up that my fence was 100% legal. But here's where it gets tricky. The demolition crew she hired, not licensed, no paperwork, no permits. And you know what else? They didn't even check to make sure they were on the right property. They just showed up, said Karen from the HOA told us to, and started tearing things down. I documented everything: photos, videos, timestamps. Every nail pulled, every board tossed aside. I recorded it all. And here's the kicker: I found out she'd been talking to other neighbors too, trying to convince them the lake should be a shared space, even if it meant changing property boundaries. All off the record, of course. But now, she'd finally crossed the line from annoying into illegal. The question wasn't if I'd do something about it, it was how far I'd take it. And I had just the plan brewing. One that would turn all her little power games into her biggest mistake yet. A few days after the fence was gone, things in the neighborhood got weird. People I barely spoke to before started acting different. Some nodded at me awkwardly. Others avoided eye contact altogether. One neighbor, Mr. Devlin, the guy who power washes his driveway every Saturday, actually pulled me aside while I was walking my dog. He said, "I heard Karen saying you blocked public lake access illegally. That true?" I just raised an eyebrow and told him, "My property lines haven't moved." Maybe Karen's stories have. That seemed to shut him up, but it confirmed. Something for me. Karen was planting rumors. Turns out she'd been talking at the HOA meeting 2 nights earlier. I didn't go because honestly, those meetings are usually just 2 hours of her ranting about landscaping violations. But apparently she brought up my fence as an example of someone abusing lake access. She didn't mention my name directly, but everyone knew who she meant. And here's the kicker: she claimed she had verbal approval from the board to take down the fence. Funny, considering the board is just 3 people, and 2 of them were out of town that week. So now, not only had Karen destroyed part of my property, she was trying to spin it like I was the one breaking the rules. And it didn't stop there. I started getting official-looking notices taped to my door, violations for things like improper landscaping maintenance and failure to comply with HOA visibility guidelines. Visibility guidelines, that wasn't even a thing. Karen was using fake infractions to rattle me, but I wasn't the only one. I spoke with my neighbor Elise, who lives 2 houses down and has a dock on the lake too. She told me Karen had approached her months ago, asking if she'd be willing to remove part of her hedge to improve neighborhood access. Elise said no, politely, but then she started getting citations too. That's when I realized this wasn't about offense. It was about control. Karen had been targeting lakefront homeowners one by one, trying to push her twisted vision of shared lake access, even if it meant breaking rules. Or in my case, dash laws. By this point, it was clear Karen wasn't just bluffing, she was escalating. What started as a fence issue had turned into a full-blown campaign against me and anyone else standing in her way. She walked the neighborhood like a sheriff in a bad Western movie, making up rules as she went. The worst part, some people actually believed her. Whether they were scared of getting on her bad side or just too tired to deal with the drama. A few neighbors started siding with her, nodding along at HOA meetings, pretending they didn't notice what she was really doing. But I wasn't backing down. I knew I had to be smart, patient, and most importantly legal. I gathered everything. Video of the unlicensed crew destroying the fence, voice memos from Elise and another neighbor, who Karen had pressured the phony citations, and even a recording from the HOA meeting where she hinted at adjusting property access. It was all starting to stack up. Then, just when I thought things couldn't get more intense, I came home one afternoon to find Karen in my backyard, not on the edge of the property in it. She had her phone out and was pacing around near the lake, pretending to measure something. When I confronted her, she waved it off like I was the one overreacting. "I'm just checking compliance boundaries," she said, with this smug little smile like she knew something I didn't. That's when I realized she was about to make a move, something big, something official. 2 days later, I got a certified letter from the HOA. It claimed that my exclusive access to the lake was under review due to community concerns and that, until further notice, I needed to refrain from obstructing access points. My jaw dropped. She was actually trying to rewrite HOA policy and weaponize it against me. The fuse was lit. Everything she'd been building, every lie, every threat, every broken board was leading to this moment. I knew I had to act fast, because if I didn't stop her now, she'd take more than just my fence. She'd take everything. Just when I thought things couldn't get any more twisted, I got a knock at the door early one morning. It wasn't Karen this time. Mitt was a city code enforcement officer. He held a clipboard, looked serious, and asked to inspect my backyard. Apparently, someone filed a complaint claiming I'd made unauthorized modifications to city-managed shoreline. My stomach dropped. I hadn't touched the shoreline, ever even stepped past my own property line. But guess who probably filed that report? Karen was no longer just messing with HOA policies, she had gone outside the neighborhood, dragging the city into it. As the officer walked the yard, I showed him the original survey, the permits for my fence, and photos proving everything was untouched. He seemed confused and a bit annoyed, muttering something about how this wasn't the first false report from our street. When he left, he gave me his card and said, "I'll close the case, but document everything. Someone's trying hard to stir things up." I was already planning my next steps, but that visit confirmed I needed to go deeper. I went to the county records office, curious to see what Karen was really up to. That's when I found something shocking. About 3 weeks before my fence came down, Karen had submitted a proposal under the HOA's name requesting a community access point to the lake. But here's the twist: the location she submitted, my property, she was trying to change. The plat map. Not just twist HOA rules, but alter legal documents. She hadn't told anyone. Not the board, not the neighbors, not even the city. She was doing it quietly, knowing full well it wouldn't pass if people found out. That's why she needed the fence gone. If the property looked accessible, she could claim it had always been a shared area and slide the request through. Before anyone noticed, this wasn't just a power grab anymore. It was fraud, plain and simple. And now I had proof. But before I could make my next move, Karen made hers. And what she did next blew this entire situation wide open. A few days after